All right, Lighthouse. Well, in our trip through the parables, we are in Luke 15, and we last time we talked about parables, we talked about the lost coin and we talked about the lost sheep. And the emphasis of this is God's heart for people. God loves us so much that he is willing to seek us out in our lostness, and this is a radical idea for these Pharisees and scribes standing around. um, their whole idea was, no, it is by my works, it is by my religiosity that I am right with God. And for God standing there in human flesh to be telling them, yeah, but in your failure, God does not reject you but seeks you. Man, that's an incredible truth. And so he continues on with this third and maybe most famous parable about lostness, and we call it the parable of the prodigal son, or the parable of the lost son. But really, it's not about the lost son, is it? You know this. It's about this second son. It might be better taught as the parable of the hard-hearted son. So let's walk through it and make some comments as we go, and just um, be sure that you and I are joining God in welcoming prodigals instead of joining the hard hearted son in saying, I don't want their kind around here. So, and he said, Jesus is talking, there was a man who had two sons, and the younger son said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Interesting that his father's willing to do that. His son says, give me my inheritance now. I don't want any part of the family business. I don't want any part of the family farm. I don't like you or my brother or anybody else, and I'm getting out of here. I want to live my own life. And his father honors that and says, okay, well, here's your inheritance. Go nuts. And nuts he does go. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into the far country. There he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. The Pharisees and scribes standing around, the religious people, are supposed to be looking at this guy going, what an idiot. And look, you and I are supposed to be looking at this guy and saying, yeah, this is not wisdom. It is not a good idea to squander your inheritance, to be unwise with the way you spend your time and money, and find yourself destitute like this. This guy was wrong. We're not supposed to go, well, this guy's making good decisions. This guy is making terrible decisions, and has the consequences of his own actions. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the field to feed pigs. It's well documented. We know pigs are unclean. This was the lowest thing this guy has gone from the top of being a wealthy son to a wealthy Jewish landowner, and now he is working as a hired hand, doing the lowest job a Jew would ever do, feeding pigs in the pig farm. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate. Really, really lost, really, really broken. No one gave him anything. This guy has lost his identity as a son. He has lost his identity as a Jew. And he's about to lose his identity as a human. He's going to starve to death. He is longing for the pods that the pigs are getting to eat. And you might see people like this in your family, in our society, people that, because of their own actions, nobody did this to them, they just sinned enough and are feeling the consequences of their own actions to where they're really in peril. Well, what are we supposed to think about those people? What is it that we're supposed to do? What is it that we're supposed to think? More than that, what does God think about those people? Well, when he came to himself, I love that. When he came to himself, you can only wake up so many times in the pig pen and go, wait a minute, my life is not going well. I've made some mistakes. When he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him," I love this. Look what he's planning on saying. Like, he's thought about it. He's rehearsing it. This is what I'm going to say when I get to my father's house. "Father, I have sinned against heaven, and before you I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants." So he's admitting his sin. His father would agree with him on this. You have taken your inheritance and squandered it. You've broken the family trust. Yes, all of that is true. And so then he says, "Please hire me as one of your hired servants. I don't want to be a son. I just want to be a servant in your house." And he arose and came to his father. And I want you to picture this walk back home. It just had to be incredibly nerve-wracking. And you imagine the whole time he's like rehearsing this. "Okay, when I get there, I'm going to say, 'Okay, Dad, I know I screwed up. I'm not worthy to be your son. Can I please just have a job? Can you please just let me? Okay, Dad, I know I screwed up. Can I please just have a job? Can I be one of your servants? Okay, Dad, I know," just over and over rehearsing what he's going to say. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion. A couple of things. What was his father doing? His father was looking for him. And instead of "I told you so," in his father's heart is produced compassion. When God sees the rebel turning and coming home, it is not, "Well, we'll see if you can get your act together, and then we'll talk. Yeah, we'll start you off as a hired servant. We'll see if you can work your way back up to son." It's not that. When God sees the rebel turning and walking towards it, it's compassion he feels. If you have walked away from God, would you know that as you turn back to him, it is compassion, not anger, that God expresses towards that person who turns and walks back home. Church, when we see people turning and making those first little steps towards Christ, it should not be, "Well, get your act together and then you're welcome," but just compassion and you're welcome. Okay, but his father said to his servants, time out. I skipped. "But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him." So, one of the things about wealthy landowners in Israel was that they wore long robes, and it was supposed to be a status symbol if you walked so slowly that your robe didn't wiggle when your robe didn't move when you walked, because people run for you. People hustle around you. You don't hustle. And so this guy, who would have been the proper way for him to just either wait for his son to approach or to slowly go out and meet his son at the edge of the property, he picks up his skirt and he runs out to his son and he grabs him and he kissed him. Kiss your sons. That's the right thing to do. "And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.'" So in the middle of all the hugging and kisses, the guy's going, "Hey, Dad, I know I'm not worthy to be your son." But the father said to his servant, the father doesn't sit him down and go, "Well, you know what? You're right, and that you're not worthy, and here's the road back." No, the man's already taken the road back. He has turned, and it's compassion and love and kisses that he's met with. So the father says to his servants, like ignoring the son's admission altogether, the father says to his servants, "Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. So in this way, it's like the coin and it's like the sheep. Something that was lost, was far away, was, not in the herd, not in the bank account, has been found, and it's reason to celebrate. So far, it is the same story as the coin and the sheep, but here is the part that is different. Now his older son was in the field. What was he doing in the field? Well, he was working. He was being a faithful son. He was in the field doing what a son should be doing. And he came and drew near to the house, and he heard music and dancing. So he hadn't even gotten the invitation to the party. It hadn't made its way out to the field. He was out far enough away that he didn't even know what was going on at home as his brother returned. And it wasn't like, "Hey, we're going to talk to your older brother and we'll make a party and invite him." No, the party was already going on. And this offends him. And it might offend me and you if we knew how willing God is to forgive everyone in our culture. And he said to him, your brother has come home. Oh, I'm sorry. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fatted calf because received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. And let's be honest, you might too. You might feel slighted. You might feel, do you remember the parable of the workers that showed up at different times in the day and they all got the same payment? Man, if you were the one who worked all day and got the same payment as somebody who showed up 5 minutes before quitting time and got the same payment, you might be offended. Like, one of the most shocking things about God is that he is far more willing to forgive, far more willing to reward than we are. Reward to us should be based on merit. Reward to God is based on relationship. It's just based on us being his. But he was angry and refused to go in, and his father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, look, these many years I've served you, and I've never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed a fatted calf for him? And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. It's not hard to see how offended the religious people of Jesus' day would be at this story. And you know, speaking as a religious person myself, it's not hard to see how this story could still offend us good religious people. That we would look and say, God's love goes too far. God's compassion extends to those who don't deserve it. God's reward is extended to those that I would never extend reward to. And shouldn't I, who have been a faithful son all these years, shouldn't I be the one celebrated? The dad looks at the son and goes, well, your reward was being with me. You've lived in my kingdom. You've lived in my house. You've eaten at my table. You've been part of this family. That's been the reward. And as part of this family, you should celebrate along with me when your brother comes back home. This is a story about something that was lost that became found, and a party is appropriate. But this is also about our willingness to receive the prodigal, our willingness to receive the rebel. How much does somebody have to do to become, to come back to our good graces, or to be worthy of compassion for us? Jesus tells this story so that we might be offended at our own lack of compassion. So let's try not to be the younger brother who goes off and squanders the good life he has at home. But if you have wandered off and squandered the good life, know that your first step back will be met with hugs and kisses and compassion. And let's also not be the older brother who just can't understand why God would love this younger son. Rather, let's reflect the heart of God, where when people turn and return, it is our desire to reward, our desire to have compassion well up in us, and our desire to welcome people back. All right. Be loved, Lighthouse.